Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to share with you what kind of fundamental problems consumers in Asia face when it comes to personal finance. I will also tell you, how we are aiming to help over 500 million people save time and money when it comes to personal finance. But I also see that, there have been lots of presentations today and lots of people are already on their phones. So while this excites me, it might excite you more that I will also share my opinion on why you should not enter into a new country within your first year. I will also share, why I give you one reason why you should not localize your business in year one that will surprise you and blow your mind. But since you're meant to listen to me for the next 15 minutes, maybe it's a good idea if you get to know each other a little bit. So I'm Gerald, I'm from Austria. This is how I looked like 2 years ago when I started the business. No, not really. I started my career in investment banking in London for a while, but I always wanted to make an impact, and I always wanted to. I was missing the bigger meaning behind what I was doing, so I wanted to build businesses. At the same time, I was very fascinated by the power and connectivity of the internet. So long story short, I worked here in Asia for a few years for different internet companies, learning everything about what is necessary to build internet companies. And during that time, I was traveling a lot within Southeast Asia, and I was also moving between countries a lot. In fact, in the last 3 years, I had to live in 5 different countries. And every time I settled in a new country, I faced very unusual problems, compared to Europe. I struggled to get a bank account. I struggled to find the right credit card, and let's not talk about medical insurance. It was I was building literally spreadsheets myself, in order to find out what is the right medical insurance for me. And then I realized I'm not alone. So I was simply shocked to see that the consumers in Asia are not well informed when it comes to personal finance. There's a poor financial knowledge, across the countries, and I think in universities, banks, insurance companies, as well as the government is not doing a very great job in educating the country and increasing trust in that sense. As well as think about countries like huge countries with thousands of islands like the Philippines or Indonesia, or think about rural areas here in Malaysia. Not everybody has access to many different bank branches or different insurance agents within 1 hour ride. So there's a limited access to lots of financial products per se. And on top of it, typically, insurance products, are bought through a friend, of a family member who is an insurance agent. And little do people know that, those insurance agents, most of the times can only cover by law just a handful of insurance companies. So they're not representing the entire market. And on top of it, those insurance agents get, every year 10, 25% commission. So consumers face high transaction costs here, and on top of it, it's very difficult for people actually to find out what is the best product for their needs. Not everybody has the time and and energy and the knowledge to go to 10 different bank branches, 10 different insurance agents, and find the right product. On the other hand, the banks and insurance companies, they also face a dilemma. Again, think about huge countries like with thousands of islands, and countries in Southeast Asia, typically huge population in a big area, and also the banks and insurance companies, they struggle to distribute their product. On the first hand, they struggle to distribute their product because it's very expensive and difficult to build out a sales network and a branch network. And on the other hand, the normal course of business to acquire customers is through TV and radio advertisement, which is hugely expensive. It's very difficult to track. And ultimately, all the banks and insurance companies, by now, they all understand that the future is the internet. They all understand, we have to go online, we have to go, to win the internet. But for banks and insurance companies, it's not their DNA. Online marketing, online acquisition, this is not something that of their core strengths. And while they all understand that the internet is like, the fastest growing city in the country, a virtual city where people, hang out and where people make decisions, and the banks also understand they need to they usually have a sales representative in every big city in the country. But when it comes to this virtual city, the internet, all of a sudden they struggle. So this is now where we come into place. We wanted to create, or we're creating an independent, comprehensive source of information for consumers, a platform where, first of all, we can make the pie bigger by educating consumers about financial products. Think about a learning center where people can learn about the basics and understand what they should look out for. They also find a tailored market comparison about the different products that fits their needs, and ultimately we make those products available to the consumers either online or over the phone, or continue on in the branches. So how does it work? A user comes to the website, enters their details in terms of what they're looking for. Think about like the Agoda for what Agoda is for the hotels. We want to be for the banks and insurance companies. So people enter what they're looking for. They see a comprehensive, truthful, independent market overview. They find products we don't have a trading relationship with. So we show all products in the market. We sort and rank those products according to facts. So we're not an advertising platform or a promotional platform. And ultimately, people can choose the products, and we make those products available, again, over the phone or online. And how do we make money? There's no additional cost for the consumer in any way. We get paid a fee for marketing service and IT services in form of advertising, clicks, referrals to the signed up customers, and as well as market data for product development. So where are we right now? So we launched in 2013. We're now in 7 countries. We're around 250 people, have tons of products on our websites, and also have tons of relationships with banks and insurance companies. And lots of people ask me, you grew very fast. And yes, we grew very fast. And lots of people ask me, how do you do it? First of all, it's not easy. Those who build companies, they understand it's bloody hard work. And with lots of setbacks and millions of mistakes. But I think ultimately it comes down to people. Every young organization is only as good as its people. So great company, great people, and the other way around. And we tried to combine. We try to get people on board who have done financial comparison in other markets before, so we can really extract all the knowledge, implement the best practices, skip the learning curve, and ultimately we work with local entrepreneurs, understand the language, understand the market, understand the culture, and can implement those best practices. And while we expanded in 2 years into 7 countries, we made some. I wanted to share some learnings over time that we gained while expanding so fast. One of them is going into new countries is an opportunity, but also a big risk. So think about it. Every time typically a company wins its home market, and they're very successful, and then typically the founder or the CEO has this ego of putting certain flags on the country map in order to show how good the business is. But that also increases massively the complexity in your organization. Additional language, additional culture, additional technology. Certain companies are just made to win one company in terms of the organizational structure, and all of a sudden it's actually a big risk to open up another construction zone. Maybe there's much more upside in actually opening up a new audience within your current country, or maybe launching a new product to your existing audience. So one of the learnings is maybe you don't need to. Maybe you can grow very fast internally in your home domestic market, and the second best option is actually going into a new country. For us, it was a bit different because we started as a regional company right from the beginning. Yeah, so we didn't grow organically one country after the other. So our DNA was right from the beginning decentralized. Our communication organization was very decentralized structure, and that's something we were very, very comfortable with. But I don't think this is recommendable for everybody. The other learning was, while I do believe that you have to be hyper-local in order to win the market, I think you can also increase your chances to win this market by being very humble and focusing on maybe markets in generally maybe are 80% similar in terms of what consumers want, in terms of what providers want, in terms of there are lots of similarities, and maybe there's lots of localization needed, but those localization gives you maybe 20% upside. I would recommend that you can be much faster in winning a new country by actually focusing on the things that are similar and ignore localization in the very beginning. This allows you to scale up revenues. It allows you to build your first foundation, your team, get some traction, and then focus on localization. It makes things much faster. And then the other learning was people always try, because everybody tries to do their best, and once it happens very often that people try to reinvent the wheel. So what we learned very fast was that when anything didn't work, or whenever we made a mistake, we tried to document this, not just sending an email around, but actually building a database around this, and making sure that we don't do mistakes again, or the same mistake again. The other way around, if something works really, really well, we try to build a certain blueprint and a certain case around it, and this leads this helps you to scale much faster because you're actually documenting intellectual property within your company in the beginning, which is very essential for any young startup. Yeah? Those are just maybe some controversial learnings from our side, but it was just quite interesting on the way. We also raised $40 million from investors such as Goldman Sachs and Jardine Pacific. And there were also some Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, like the founder of the Facebook games, Zynga, on board. So, and because we built a true win-win business that is good for the consumers and good for the providers, but how did we raise it, and why did we raise it, and why did we get the confidence from those investors? So essentially, if you really boil it down to why it was such a clear investment case for our investors, at least, it's a proven business model that works in many countries around the world. Why? Because people like to save money, and they like to save time. It's also a mass market business model. It's not just people who buy electronics or buy property or fashion. It's actually anybody that consumes financial products, from a credit card to a car insurance. It's also a very capital efficient business model. $40 million is not a lot for an e-commerce company because they need to build up a warehouse, etc., and inventory. But we do not have an inventory. We do not have a warehouse. We do not have logistics. And we do not need lots of salespeople like a Groupon, for example, needs. So what we have is HR and marketing costs. Yeah? It's all about people. Our business is all about people. It's a relationship business model where we need to gain the trust with the banks and insurance companies and gain the trust with the consumers. Obviously, it's I don't need to tell anybody that it's a massive market here, but ultimately, it comes down again to the team, and the team has delivered results. We're growing our revenues right now 10 to 40% every month, and we're profitable after marketing costs. That's something that many e-commerce companies dreaming of for the next few years because it's so hard to get to profitability. And on the way, we faced a huge amount of challenges, of course. Typically, when we started, we realized, again, fintech is all about credibility and trust. Trust is something you need to gain over time, and it takes a long time and can be lost very quickly. And the banks and insurance companies, their biggest asset is their brand. And there are lots of, when it comes to the internet, there are lots of, internet businesses, who are trying to do business with certain, providers. And it's very important to build up, confidence and trust with those providers, as well as on the consumer side. They need to, trust that the product pricing is accurate, the eligibility criteria are correct, that they find all products in the market, that the information is correct, and that they can actually, there's no any hidden costs in any way. Yeah? The second part is the technology platform. We threw our technology platform away like 2 times because we learned so much on the way. And now we realized we can invest in a technology platform that nobody could afford on a single country basis. Think about calculating in real time insurance premium pricing, thousands and thousands of times per minute. This becomes technology-wise, quite complex. And ultimately, it's all data aggregation. We started very rudimentary, in terms of, there's no data provider in the market where you can just plug in and then you get the loan rates and credit card rates and insurance rates in the country. So we actually, we started, with collecting, leaflets, pamphlets, brochures in the branches, and start aggregating this information. Not even the providers have sometimes competitive analysis, about, what the market is. So it's very pioneering in terms of, building up this data, this data set, which, again, we started very rudimentary, and now we have relationships with the providers, and it works much more automatic. But it was very hard, in the very beginning. Ultimately, so what is our strategy in winning this? Again, it comes down to people. We combine people who have done financial comparison before, and we combine this with local entrepreneurs to implement the best practices. Also, the regional footprint, allows us to close regional partnerships with banks and insurance companies who are also regional. We can speak with the headquarters in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, and it also allows us, because we are pursuing a much bigger opportunity, it also allows us to attract investors globally. It also allows us to attract talent globally. It's not just a single country project. And ultimately, also the IT platform, which took us a long time to build up. Our IT platform was built by an architect of a Twitter platform. It's one common core backend, with multiple front ends that really allows us to speed and scale, but also localize the business over time. And while this all sounds very, as well as all is very exciting, and it's exciting to work with the C-level of the banks and insurance companies, and it's exciting to build a big business and build a big team. What gets me out of bed every day in the morning is simply the opportunity to make an impact. And there's nothing, think about it, every country's stage of development is also determined to a certain extent by its access to financial products, market transparency, financial education. So this is an opportunity to leave a footprint behind, and I want to say, at least in a few years' time, that we helped 1 million people save time and money, maybe $50 on their annual car insurance. That's $50 for car insurance. It's an annual fixed mandatory expense. And if people can save $30, $40, $50 every year on switching to a cheaper car insurance provider, that's quite a lot of money for certain people who are not that well off, and that's something that really excites us, because ultimately the financial industry is one of the biggest industries in every country in the world, and we're becoming the leading distribution platform in this industry, which is super exciting. But ultimately what we do is we empower consumers. We want to give the power back to the consumers, because helping people is a feeling that money can't buy. Thank you.